Let's not beat around the bush. Hi, my name is the Lizcat, and I'm making some concept art for my fantasy setting. Specifically, I'm making concept art of the people in it. Specifically of three incarnations, which is a fancy word for elemental people, basically. The way I'm making them is by way of collage, because that's kind of what I do. So we're starting off with the fire incarnation, and first off, we obviously gotta prepare the face, and you might immediately notice that... where's the face? Where are the eyes? Isn't that a decision? And yes, it is. To me, what makes elementals interesting is that they are not actually relatable to us, and I think the way to make that work is by just removing the things that we rely on the most as humans to understand each other, which is the eyes and the eyebrows. The micro movements in those areas of the face tell us a lot about people. So I just got rid of them for my elementals. That's just how it is. That's just how I feel. I also wanted the fire one to have like an ashy, pale kind of look. So that's kind of what I went for here. The reason I wanted it to be kind of ashy is because I don't necessarily like the bright orange fire person kind of vibe. I like the idea that their skin is almost like flaking off like ash would off of firewood, for example. So here I'm starting to add the fire, and the idea is that this element is breaking out of the face. I started with the fire because I think most people just kind of instinctively understand a fire person. I don't know why, but that seems to be a pretty big thing in culture writ large, so that's where I started. Also because fire is my favorite. So outside of the fire breaking out of the elemental cavity, I also wanted fire to frame the face a little bit, because I think that creates for a more interesting visual. That the fire is spilling outwards, and it's not just contained within. And I think it looks really nice, actually. Having a variety of different pieces on hand really helps with creating something like this. Creating different quote-unquote textural experiences by using different pieces, I think helps with the believability of a piece like this, of a photobash piece. Here, I'm also trying to add sort of an edge glow that's emanating from the fire. It kind of worked, and it kind of didn't. But you know, this was the first one that I made. This was really a proof of concept for what I wanted to do. Really, this is all concept art. None of this is like final things that would go in like a guidebook for the setting. If there's a better way to do a glow effect, please let me know. I don't know if Gaussian blur is necessarily the thing to do when you're creating a glow effect. Here I'm adding just a little bit more highlighting where I think there should be. Obviously, the nose needs a bit of work because, there's fire directly underneath. But I also wanted to experiment with like a big, like fiery glow towards the camera. So I pulled all the stops. I did gradients, and I tried to make sure that it felt natural to the dispersion of light. But it worked out for the most part. But there's definitely a better way I could have gone about it. And then it was time to just kind of finalize it using some Photoshop algorithms in the Photoshop filters. They are actually quite nice for just finishing a piece like this, like a collage photobash thing. You just gotta be really careful with them because they can be like quite overpowering. It's also important to experiment with a lot of features that you have in the filter section of Photoshop. You don't really know what's exactly going to make the piece pop until you actually try it, which is why it's important to make it a smart layer and then just go in and keep trying things until it looks complete and finished and you like it. And that pretty much does it for the concept art for a fire incarnation in my fantasy world. Gosh, what are we gonna do next, I wonder? Next up, I wanted to do a metal incarnation, an elemental person of the element of metal. And someone pointed out that I only ever make women, so I deliberately went out of my way to make this one more masculine. And who's more masculine than Jeff Bridges? Something that I knew going in was that I wanted a kintsugi-like vibe to the face of a metal elemental. And so, to really sell that, I made it black and white. And then as I was thinking about the facial cavity, I thought of just removing the entire face. Eyes, eyebrows, nose, mouth, just everything gone. Metal is part of the mortal triad of elements, which also include mundanity and death. These are the most human, most relatable elements in the setting, kind of. So making these the least relatable by just having no face at all made perfect sense to me. Here I am experimenting with how to actually get the kintsugi feel that I wanted. So I start with this black crack texture that I found, and making sure that it just rests on the skin, doesn't go into the hair, and that it can sort of fade inside the cavity. I think I should have displaced it a bit more, but that's for next. Here I'm trying to create a golden web feel to it, just like with kintsugi, which is a Japanese art of pottery repair. So I'm making sure that it looks like slightly raised gold, and that the actual cracks feel like they're filled in by metal and not just splatter painted. Here, I'm doing something that I've really wanted to do for this elemental, which is adding a night visor helmet. a big inspiration for metal elementals is specifically Alphonse Elric from Fullmetal Alchemist, as a sort of animated armor kind of vibe. So getting some kind of an armor piece into the design was pretty much guaranteed from the beginning. And I wanted it to be gold, because elementals cannot utilize iron or silver or steel or lead or any of those alloys. Because those are toxic metals to them. You know, like how in fairy tales, cold iron and silver and stuff. And lead is just poison. Lead is just an awful metal. So I wanted to ensure a gold brass kind of color to the metal. Also, I think it just really nicely pops on the black and white. And this is why it's so important to label all of your layers, because then you get confused and accidentally drawn the wrong layer, or just forget to remove something and then it just sticks around and then it gets confusing. Name all of your layers, for the love of God. Oh my god. My fantasy setting has no dwarves, so to still maintain a sort of dwarfy vibe, to, you know, a person of metal, I wanted to get some kind of a metal beard. So I found this image of a gorget on Google, and I warped it and I colored it until it looked a little bit like a golden beard. The cavity was looking a little bit bare, so I thought it would be fun to add some chains on the inside. The sort of double helix motif of DNA, you know, like a metal DNA. I think it's an interesting visual. I'm quite fond of how this one turned out. Using Jeff Bridges was a fun thing. Yeah, this was also a lot of fun to work with, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I probably could have pushed the stylization on the final a bit more. That's notes for the future, maybe next time. God, it really does just look like... It really does look like the Giga Chad face at this point, doesn't it? And to close us out, we're gonna make a breath incarnation. Breath is one of the divine elements, which are like elements of creation, of purity, stuff like that. You know, God stuff. Breath is sort of synonymous with life. It's not Homestuck. It's not Homestuck! So for this one, the idea was sort of like a prayer bowl, you know? Is that a real thing? I actually didn't look it up. There's something in my mind about a prayer bowl where you would like drop some water or like blood or like money, like a ritual bowl where you put like offerings and stuff. that's real, right? Like that's normal. That's a thing that exists. So I thought doing like sort of a bowl motif for the cavity would sort of further reinforce the idea of an otherworldly divinity. It's always important to remember, like, the shadows that will be cast by objects onto themselves. When you're working in collage like this, the shadows is what makes the piece actually flow well. So for the element itself, I wanted to do concentric rings. It's sort of a play on the quote-unquote biblically accurate angel. There's sort of an understanding in pop culture of concentric rings as the sort of symbol of divinity, or otherwise angelicness? Angelity? You know what I mean. Themselves revolve around a sort of symbol, a glyph of power. I like the idea of sort of a power symbol resting on the center instead of like an eye or, a cluster of eyes. It's like how Jesus Christ in real life lore, would sometimes be depicted by a Christogram. It's sort of inspired by the Christogram, the letter X, or letter chi in Greek, in the original Greek. There's a lot of inspiration from a sort of pop cultural Christian kind of vibe for these, because I want them to read as angelic to, at a glance. I want people to look at them and be like, oh, okay, I get their idea. I get their deal as like angels and stuff.
Is this Blender?
Yeah. I took that shit to Blender. I don't like Blender. I don't like Blender. I don't find it fun to work in Blender. Maybe it's because I'm new at it and I don't super understand how any of it works. But every time I try to work in Blender, it's always the worst experience of my creative life. You like really see me learning how to do this stuff. Any like little pause in the video is me consulting a tutorial that I found on the internet, which I'll actually hopefully remember to put in the description. The tutorials were lovely. I'm very thankful for them. Thank you so much. But it is more fun to 3D model this sort of thing, because you can really get the positioning and the camera and the lighting right. So I'm really glad that I figured out how to do it in Blender. It's just that I wish Blender was better. Something that I enjoy about Blender, and also just photobash collage in general, is that it really can feel like toys. It can feel like you're playing with toys as a kid. I think that's part of the appeal for me with working in this sort of mixed media style. It really brings me back to a childhood creativity, which I think we're all sorely missing in this day and age. Of just having fun with like toys and shapes and magazine cutouts and cardboard and stuff. you see me following a tutorial for how to make things metal. Thank you so much to the tutorial. It's in the description. What was really nice was being able to pre-program the lighting on the inside to get the power glyph light going inside the rings before I went back into Photoshop. So that was good. I'm glad that that's an option that I have when I'm 3D modeling this stuff. Wow! Getting some extra light, like directional light on the outside, I think also really helps sell the metal look. Even if, realistically, where's that light coming from? Places. And now we're back in Photoshop. And we've got the rings, and I think they look excellent. I think custom making these in Blender was the unambiguously correct decision. So I took the glyph that I had previously drawn and I layered it into the inside of the rings. I adjusted its perspective and I warped it so it looks like it's relatively facing the similar direction as the rest of the face. And then I applied a bunch of gradients and color adjustments to really make it feel like it's glowing. Again, remember to label and organize your layers. It's so fucking important. And then it was just about, like, making sure that the sigil is fully contained within the rings, which is just as easy as selecting all the insides where they should be showing, and then just deleting the rest. Then it came time to really adjust the values on the face. I think it turned out pretty good. Getting a bit of lights in there from the glyph. I will say, I don't think the lights turned out as good. I think I definitely could have pushed them a bit more, but it is what it is. This symbol was looking a bit bare to me, so I spent some time adding some dimension to it, a bit more glow, making it feel a bit more like a physical object inside the rings, rather than just like a floating, like a two-dimensional letter. And then for finalizing, a bit of highlighting adjustment on the rings, and then right into all the smart filtering stuff. This one is undoubtedly, like without a single doubt, my favorite of these three. Just everything about it just ended up looking correct. Everything about it ended up looking good, and like how I wanted it to. Struggling with Blender was definitely super worth it in the end. I just love how textural it feels. Ah, it's wonderful. Wonderful piece. This project was a lot of fun. I have 6 more elements I could show you that I may or may not be working on. Hey, you can something to look forward to, right? If you subscribed. Wow. These incarnations are part of my whimsical fantasy setting called Mathilda. It's called Mathilda because that's the name of the turtle that the world rests on the back of. Let me know if you want to learn more about this setting, and maybe I can make a little video about it. That could be cool. This was very much about the art and not necessarily about the lore. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way through. There are some links for you to click on over there, including the wink wink subscribe button, the subscribe button, the subscribe button, and also some other videos, some music perhaps. This is a variety channel, I think. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.